The What to Next podcast helps you build a TBR of each your favorite books. In each episode, Lori and Maine interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show. Hi, Fiona. Welcome to What to Next podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So happy to have you here. Tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, it's been busy. I have a book coming out called The Spectacular, which is very exciting, but I just can't, every book I forget how crazy it gets in the kind of runoff up to a launch. It's every time I forget, and every time I'm overwhelmed and crazed, but very excited.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I was just telling you how excited about the chosen building for this book, because I love the fact that you choose a memorable building in New York, and look at the history and the tidbits and all the fun stuff. And The Spectacular is all about Radio City Music Hall.
Yes, exactly. It's about a rockette in the 1950s. It's a woman who wants to be a rockette, and she goes against her father's wishes to do so and gets caught up in all kinds of craziness.
Yeah. So what made you decide Radio City was the time? This is the time after post-pandemic, we're back in places, back in theater. Is that like a reason why, maybe let's go to a theater, in New York, or was it something else,
No, what happened was I was trying to figure out where to set my next book, and I was having a hard time figuring out what would work. And I got an email through my author website from a woman who said that she was in her 80s and she danced as a rockette at Radio City Music Hall. And if I wanted to learn all about that and hear all the secrets, I should call her.
Oh my God. So you got firsthand resource. That's amazing.
Yes, she came to me and we had a wonderful conversation. Her name's Sandy. She was just terrific and had all these very vivid memories and wonderful archival material that I could, draw from. And so the more I talked to her, the more I thought, I should do this, even though I was really intimidated at the idea of, rockettes and dance. I'm certainly not a dancer.
Yeah.
But I knew by speaking to rockettes, and I've spoken to ones from the 40s, 50s, and then even up to, today. And it's such a sisterhood that it just, it fueled my desire to write this book. It was so much fun.
Yeah, when I lived in New York, there was a bar studio in Jersey City that was opened by two Rockettes. And so I used to take classes, and I used to be like, and this is how we used to do the Rockettes. And I was like, it's like such a New York thing. Like, you may have that 5-degree separation of like an actor or actress or someone who was in Broadway or not. And it was like kind of cool to be like, you're Rockettes. Like, there's a precision, there's like a whole choreography, there's an expectation they have to perform, and there's a height, requirement. There's a whole thing.
Yeah. It's so strict to get in. It's really tough to audition and get in is amazing. But it's true here in New York, once I've started talking about this book, I hear from so many people saying, oh, my friend's daughter is a rockette, or, my grandmother was. And it's just great. It's like I said, this sisterhood. It's incredible.
Yeah, I love this. And so speaking of The Spectacular, so that's coming out this summer. Then if you look back in your backlist, what other books would you recommend people who have to finish, The Spectacular can read back from your backlist?
Yeah, if you want a little more theater, there's one called The Chelsea Girls, which is set at the Chelsea Hotel, but also it's about mounting a show on Broadway in the 1950s during the McCarthy era. So that was a really fun one. And then if you love old buildings, there's one set at the Dakota called The Address. And that's from the point of view of a housekeeper who comes to open the building in the 1880s when it first opened, and then an interior decorator in the 1990s. And the stories kind of collide, as they tend to do in my books. And then, one of the more recent ones is the Magnolia Palace, which is set at the Frick. So if you like art and quirky characters and scavenger hunts, that's the book for you.
I love those recommendations, and I still love. I would just say the New York Public Library. It's one of my favorite ones.
The Lions of Fifth Avenue. Yeah, that was just incredible. That was you know what? I'll add that to it. Yeah.
I feel like people should read your books and then take a trip to New York and go visit the different buildings and have their own like historical fiction / New York trip, guided tour.
Yeah, sure. Because you're looking at these buildings, but you're also looking at the generations of people who've lived there and the ghosts who wander the buildings. And so I think it adds to a New York visit for sure.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk some book recommendations. Do you have any books to recommend your listeners to pick up?
Yeah, there's one that it came out last year, but I just love it and can't stop recommending it. It's The Violin Conspiracy by
Mhm.
Brendan Slocum. And it's about a Black classical musician, a violinist, whose Stradivarius goes missing. And he has to hunt down who stole it. And so it's really great because it's a thriller, it's suspense, but it's the beautiful writing about music and the struggle that this musician has gone to get to where he is today. And it's written by a classical musician, Brendan Slocum, who's just an amazing speaker and writer. And so that's a really fun one.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited for that one for sure. And what's the other book recommendation you want to recommend?
I would recommend Hotel Laguna by Nicola Harrison.
Mhm.
It's a great beach book. It's set in the past, so it's historical fiction. It's a beach book. It's about a woman really striving to come into her own, and it's just a remarkable story with a beautiful cover. So I definitely recommend that one.
Oh my gosh, I'm adding that to my TBR for sure. You have me a beach book, hotel, that's what I need. Yeah. So awesome. Fiona, tell us where we can find you online.
Yeah, I'm at FionaDavisBooks.com. On Instagram and Facebook, I'm Fiona Davis Author.
Thank you, Fiona, for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was great.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support the podcast. For a list of books mentioned and other book recommendations, please visit whattoreadnextblog.com. Thank you so much for listening and happy reading.